we go.
Record.
Okay, there we go. Recording in progress. Good to see you all. We're beginning a new set of, I think this is what, 5 classes until our break at the beginning of August. And so we're going to begin with some prayers, including the Yondan Shigirma, and at the request of Nadine and Mikhail, I'll give a short oral transmission after we do our own recitation of it. I'll recite it in Tibetan as a oral transmission of that. They had requested that some time ago. Okay, so Mikhail, Shankar's going to put up our prayers, which beginning of which we know, most of us know.
You want the foundation, or you want the prayers first?
The prayers first, please.
Okay.
Although I think most everyone knows, maybe Josh, I'm not sure if, Joseph, not Josh. If Joseph knows.
Okay. Sure, I'll just share my screen because okay.
Okay. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create, through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all migrating beings. The word in Tibetan is droa. In the Tibetan phonetics there, it says drola, for the benefit of them. Sangye chodang soki chognam la, jangchu bardu dagni kyapsu chi, dagi chunyen gi pe sognam ki, drola penchir sangye drupa sho. Sangye chodang soki chognam la, jangchu bardu dagni kyapsu chi, dagi chunyen gi pe sognam ki, drola penchir sangye drupa sho. Short mandala. By offering this anointed ground, anointed with perfumes and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and moon, visualized as a Buddha realm, may all migrators enjoy a pure realm. O holy and perfect pure Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please send down a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. Idam Guru Radna Mandala Kam Nirya Tayami. And now as we're beginning this unit, we're going to recite the foundation of good qualities. And here it is. If Shankar, can you make it a little larger type so people can see? I'm not sure how big it is. There it is. There we go. The foundation of all good qualities is the correct devotion to the kind and perfect Guru. Correctly following the Guru is the root of the path. By my clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely on the Guru with great respect. So the topic of Guru devotion is very, very important. And in most of the glance meditations on the Lanrim, the very first verse also always usually refers to Guru devotion. Whenever Geshe Sopa we would have long life puja for him at the end of courses, Geshe would kind of humbly say that he didn't really view himself as a Mahayana guru, that the practice of that was a very profound practice. We take it for granted, we read about it in the Lan Rim, but it is something very, very sensitive. So if you can practice Guru devotion, that's incredible. If not, you can just see your teachers as your your acharyas, your spiritual teachers, not so much from the point of view of all of the regulations of guru devotion. When I've discovered that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once, that it is extremely difficult to find again and is greatly meaningful, please bless me to unceasingly generate the mind, taking its essence day and night. This body and life are changing like a water bubble, remembering how quickly they perish and death comes. And after death, just like a shadow follows the body, the result of black and white karma follow. In regard to karma, recently, when I was coming back from town to my cabin, I saw a FedEx truck that had fallen over on the side of the road. The police were there. The guy was okay. Traffic was stopped. And I waved at the guy. I said, "Are you okay?" And he kind of went, "Yeah." He was obviously shaken that the truck had fallen over. I think it had slipped on the side of the road. When I got to my cabin, there was a FedEx package waiting for me of some eye medicine the insurance company sends via FedEx. And I thought, it must have been that guy, it was so close, that had delivered the FedEx package. And I'd never seen him before. I thought maybe by the karma of him coming on the consecrated ground of my cabin, so many events have taken place here, fire pujas and retreats and visiting lamas and so forth. Maybe just by that, coming in contact with some holy place like that, some negative karma had ripened, and that he immediately had this accident, which would have resulted eventually in him, if it had not ripened now, in his falling into the lower realms in the next life. So I rejoiced at his accident. Okay. When I have found definite conviction in this, please bless me to always be conscientious in abandoning even the slightest collection of shortcomings and accomplishing all virtuous deeds. When I have recognized the shortcomings of the samsaric perfections, that there is no satisfaction in enjoying them, that they are the door to all suffering, and that they cannot be trusted, please bless me to generate the strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Through my being led by this pure thought with great remembrance, great recollection, alertness, and conscientiousness, please bless me to make the keeping of the individual liberation vows, the pratimoksha vows of a layperson or of a monastic, the root of the teachings, make them my essential practice. Just as I have fallen into the sea of samsara, so have all mother migrating beings. By my seeing this, please bless me to train in supreme bodhicitta, which bears the responsibility of freeing migrating beings. Even if I develop mere bodhicitta, it's just wishing bodhicitta, without familiarizing myself with the three types of morality, I cannot achieve enlightenment. Seeing this well, please bless me to keep the vows of the sons of the conquerors with fervent effort. So that means taking not that just wishing bodhicitta alone is not sufficient to achieve enlightenment. You have to have engaging bodhicitta and engage in the practices of the bodhisattvas. By my having pacified distractions to wrong objects and correctly analyzed the meaning of reality, please bless me to quickly generate within my mind stream the unified path of calm abiding and special insight. Then, when I have become a suitable vessel by training in the common path, please bless me to immediately enter the holy gateway of the fortunate beings, the supreme of all vehicles, the Vajrayana. At that time, the basis of accomplishing the two attainments is keeping my vows and commitments, the samayas, purely. When I have gained effortless conviction in this, please bless me to protect them even at the cost of my life. Then when I have realized exactly the vital points of the two stages, the essence of the tantric sets, and I am enjoying the yoga of 4 sessions with effort without being distracted by non-meditation objects, please bless me to accomplish these according to the teachings of the holy beings. Thus may my spiritual friends who reveal the noble path and the spiritual practitioners who correctly accomplish it have long lives. Please bless me to pacify completely the collections of outer and inner obstacles. In all my lives, may I never be separated from perfect gurus. May I enjoy the magnificent Dharma, and by completing the qualities of the grounds and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. And then the colophon, just because I'm going to give the, it just says that it was composed by Lama Tsong Khapa. Okay, so that's good. So, yeah, going back, so we don't need those up any longer. I mentioned that I'll give the oral transmission of this, probably received from several lamas, Lama Sopa Rinpoche and Geshe Senge, who was the abbot of Sera in Tibet when we went there. I don't think any of our group here were on that trip. Geshe Senge also came to India and was invited by Lama Zopa to Dharamsala along with the other Tulkus because he had some very secret Hayagriva lineages, the complete teachings on Hayagriva. That was a special practice at Sera. And when he was at Tushita Dharamsala, in the meditation center there, I think the group of Sangha, Western Sangha that were there met with him. And I think he gave the oral transmissions of many of Lama Tsongkhapa's general teachings to us. He gave the secret teachings on Hayagriva to the High Lamas, the Tulkus, and other Lamas in a sort of isolated secret place. Okay, so Lama Tsongkhapa wrote this prayer, as I've mentioned at other times, at Rating, which is people often pronounce as Reading, almost sounds like Reading, Pennsylvania, or Reading, Indiana, or something like that. But Ra means like when we talk about the horns of a rabbit, but Ra also means like the peaks, like when we talk about the Dalai Lama's prayer about in the land encircled by peaks of snowy mountains. Teng means in this case, it's a word that means established. It's an area in Tibet where Drondempa established a monastery, which was called Rating, after Atisha had passed away. About 2 years after his passing, Drondempa went there, and with the relics, his portion of the relics of Atisha, he started this monastery. Although he was a monastic, although he was not a monastic, he was a layperson. And when I visited Tibet, I visited the monastery of Gomotuku in a region somewhere north of Lhasa, but not in Reading itself. And I asked if I could visit there. And the monks were so excited because I was the first Western disciple they had met of Gomotuku at that time. So I think 1988. And they were all excited. So they got trucks together and we all trucked to Reading. And I got to, they did their own pilgrimages. I think some of them took me around and I saw the place where Lama Tsongkhapa had composed this prayer, Yondan Shigurma, Foundation of Good Qualities, at Reading. He also composed in Reading in a cave from the place where he composed the Yondan Shigurma, where I was sort of standing. I could see the cave where he composed the Lanrim Chemo, called Senge Ka, mouth, the lion mouth. I went up there and met some nuns who were sort of always in attendance there, and they had an old text of Lama Tsongkhapa's. Maybe it was a relatively new printing, not old, from Lama Tsongkhapa's day. They had a Lanrim Chemo, and I offered them some small amount of money for them to buy a cover. They didn't have a covering of it. But anyway, that's a little bit of background. So this is, I'm going to give you I'm just going to read the Tibetan of the Yondan Shigurma that we just recited in English. So if you think of that you're going to be receiving the Lung, please just recite this as we did before, the taking refuge and generating bodhicitta 3 times. Sangye churang soke chognam la, changchu baru dagni kapsuchi, dagi chushe chunen gi pe sognam ki, drola penche sangye drupa shok, sangye churang soke chognam la, changchu baru dagni kapsuchi, dagi chunen gi pe sognam ki, drola penche sangye drupa shok, sangye churang soke chognam la, Changchu baru dagni kapsuchi, dagi chunengi besognamgi, trola penje sangye drupasho. So in receiving an oral transmission, the main thing is just to listen to the words and not to have your mind distracted to any other thoughts. Yonden kungi shirgyur, dinchenche, sushin tempa alamgi, sawaru, lekpa tongne beba dumai, gupa chempo tempa jingilo. Lenchik nepe deljo delwe tensangdi, shintu neka donchen shegyurne, ninsen kundu ningpo lempelo, gyuche mepa kewa jingilo. Luso gyowa chui chubur shin, nyurdu chikpe chiwa dempadang, shiwe jesu ludang, dipmashin, karnak lede, chishin de tangwala, ngepa tempo nene, nepe sok, dashing dawa, nam kyang, pongwadang, kesok tadak drupa, chepala, takpa, bata, takpa, bakdang dembe, jingilo. Chepe mingom dugna kungigo, iten mirum sipe punsoki, nemek rikne tarpe dewala, donya chempo kewa jingilo. Namdak sampa dei dembai, dendang sheshin bakyu chempo tempe sawa susu tarpala, dipa ningpo chepa jingilo. Rangni siso lungwa chishindu, margyu droa kunkyang dedawa, tongne droa droe kurkierpe, changshub semchok, chompa jingilo. Sensam kekyang sutim namsum la, kompa mena changshub midrupar, lekpa tongne gelse dombala, sumpa trakpo, lopa jingilo. Lupe yula yengwe, shi che ching, yangdak don la, sushin chobai, shine lakton sundu, dewe lam, nyudu gyula, keba jingilo. Tungmong lam chang, nudu kyupana, tekpa kungi chokyu, det dorje tek, kelsan keo, jugno dampe der, delak nidu, chupa jingilo. De se ngudu namni, dupe shi, namdak damsik, dumpa sungwala, chupa mamin, choma mimpe nepe negurne, suktang dente, sungwa jingilo. Dene gude ningpo rikniki nenam jishin topne sompaye. Tunshin na neljo choklam. Tunshi neljor chokle miyelwar, dampe sungchin drupar jingilo. Detar lamsang tumpe, shenendang, sushin drupes, choknam, shaptenshing, chinang nangwe, bardu chopeso, newa shiwa jingi laptuso. Kewa kundu yangdak lama dang, delme choki pela longcho ching, sadang lamgi, yunden rabzogne, dorji changwang, dorji changi gopang nurtu sho. Okay, that's the oral transmission of the Yunden Shugurma. So, okay, so we'll forego our usual morning meditation and motivation. Hopefully, this would have sufficed. And also, just to think, when we talk about in the prayer for the quick return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, mentioning how he has, during his life, he upheld the scriptural and realizational dharma and so forth. And in our prayers, the same kind of things. Upholding the scriptural dharma also means having received the oral transmissions, and then in your lifetime to hold them, to be able to share them with others later. The only reason I thought to accede to the request of Nadine and Mikhail was because of Serkun Rinpoche's statement during the puja that Jennifer had organized last year for to overcome obstacles to my life. He had said that Venerable George should give everything, sort of share everything that he had. So that's in that spirit, not holding back, kind of some kind of things like that. Okay. So we are on the section in Lama Tsongkhapa's text in the Gompa Rapso, just before the two truths, or just, I guess this is the section that Thupten Jinpa, it's called the section 11. What page number are we on? Section 11, which says rebutting objections to this refutation from the worldly perspective?
It's on page 221.
221.
On the paper copy, of course.
Yes. And okay. So in the FPMT copy, I'm not sure of the page. So this says, rebutting objections to this refutation from the worldly perspective. So what is this talking about? So we'd gone over this last time, but just to get the perspective, what's this talking about? What refutation are we talking about? And what objections are there? Richard, are you following? You're clear what this is talking about?
I think so. Please correct me, but as I understand it, the refutation is the refutation of let's see, from other, that the production from other, and the objections are the ones that we previously discussed, which aren't in my mind, but I can look them up. So those would be but the refutation is the refutation of self and other.
Right. So the Prasangika Chandrakirti has refuted along the line of reasoning of Nagarjuna production from other. It's already refuted production from self, will in the future refute both, production from both self and other and causelessly. Those are easy. But there are going to be now some objections to the Prasangika refutation. There were some objections at the time, but now these are sort of like serious objection here. So this has two parts. In Jimpa's take on it, his translation, repelling objections from the worldly perspective, assuming that arising from other is accepted in worldly convention. So that's what we're going to be dealing with first of all. Then later, repelling or overcoming objections from the worldly perspective on the basis that arising from others does not exist even in worldly convention. Okay, so the first one, repelling objections from the worldly perspective, assuming that arising from others is accepted in worldly convention. How does Venerable Joan translate that here? I think we already, yeah. I'm not sure what.
It's on page 118, Venerable.
Okay. So she says, how does she translate that? I'm wondering, repelling objections. How does she translate that?
She says, dispelling harm from the world through asserting production from other, etc.
Okay, so repelling objections from the worldly perspective, assuming that arising from other is accepted in worldly convention. This is two parts. The opponent's objection that such refutation is invalidated by worldly convention. So the refutation means the Prasangika has refuted production from others, and that the opponents object, saying that this refutation of Prasangika is invalidated by worldly convention, by the conventions of the world, the viewpoint of the worldly beings. And two, the response at worldly convention does not invalidate. The response at worldly convention does not invalidate the refutation. That means the response of the Prasangika. Okay, so the opponent's objection is stated thusly. The opponent, we've gone over this last time, so it's just reviewing. You may claim that that the arguments we have put forth to prove arising from others have all been burned up by the fire of your intelligence, you Prasangika geeks. Like dry logs soaked in melted butter. There's no opponent that's actually saying this. I think this was Chandrakirti kind of giving some context, So go ahead and stir these logs with the blazing fire of your wisdom. It is pointless now to add more fuel. Now you might ask, you Prasangikas might ask, this is all from the point of view of those who are objecting to Prasangika having refuted production from others, because all of the lower tenets are going to say there has to be production from others. right? You've just refuted it. So, but you've used logic to do it. It's useless to add more fuel now, to use more logical reasonings. Now, you Prasanghikas might ask, isn't it the case that arising from others cannot be established without reasoning? So remember the double negative. I think some people might have had headaches like that. In other words, you Prasanghikas assert that refuting production from others has to be established by reasoning. To this, we non-Prasanghikas would say, no, there is nothing any reasoning can do about what is established by the world. That means from the worldly perspective, worldly conventions. For what is perceived by the world possesses great power. And this is quoting, all of this is quoting the Bhasham, the Chandrakirti's auto commentary. This point is rendered in the following verse from the Karakas. So as you remember, in Gompa Rabsal, you won't find the Karakas set off like in Triptan Jimpa's text here, making it easy for us to follow. Lama Tsongkhapa doesn't quote them. It's kind of assuming everyone knows by memory the Majjhimika Vatara Karikas. Did anyone ever memorize any of them? Anyone? Paul, did you ever in your studies ever memorize it? Yeah. So this is verse 622, this 22nd verse of the 6th chapter. Worldly, and Jimpa has in brackets here, opponent. So in other words, this verse is stating the viewpoint of the opponent that we were just talking about. Worldly perspective, grounded in its own views, is authoritative. Things come from what is other than themselves is perceived by people. So what use is reasoning here in this context? Thus, other arising is established. What need have we of reasoning? So in the FPMT translation that Venerable Joan proposed, she has the order of the translation more in accord with the Tibetan. Jimpa has taken the second line and put it as the third line. But anyway, so the FPMT translation says, anyone abiding in his own view asserts the world as valid. Therefore, in regard to what is to be done by proponent, therefore, in regard to that, there should be a comma there, what is to be done by propounding reasonings. Also, that other arises from other is realized by worldly beings. Therefore, in regard to the existence of production from other, what need is there for reasoning? Okay, you kind of get the gist? So when it says grounded in its own views, worldly perspective considers itself to be valid. He has authoritative here. That's what we say sema, is pramana. In other words, just like direct perception, that's what should be accepted as authoritative for the world. This is what the opponent is saying. So what use is reasoning here in this context? I'm reading the third line next. In Jimpa's translation, it's actually the second Tibetan line. That things come from what is other than themselves, that they arise from what is other than themselves, is perceived in direct perception by people. Thus, other arising is established. What need have we of reasoning? That makes sense, right? That's the objection here. Okay, so the Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary in Gompa Rapsal actually is just starting here and is referring to that karika, to that verse. Given that the world's population, as it just says, the world, in the text. And also there's always some kind of discussion about what is meant by the world. Is it talking about the vessel world or whatever? No, it's talking about people, the worldly people. And given that the world's population, grounded in its own views alone, asserts that worldly perspective is authoritative, is valid, is the pramana, is it's sema. This perspective possesses great power as a result of that, because the world believes that its own views are authoritative, so that perspective possesses great power. And the effects that are other do come from causes that are intrinsically other than themselves, is perceived by the people of the world. So ordinary people perceive that effects, that from causes, effects arise, and that the causes are different, that are other than the effects. That's perceived. Everyone perceives that. Louise, what do you think?
What is another way of saying this would be seeing is believing?
Yeah, that would be
Okay,
sure.
Shorter
There
way
are
of
probably
saying it.
many idioms
verbal.
in the West that apply here, but that's it. Seeing is believing. Mikhail, do you have another one?
Yeah, about the expression grounded in its own views. Does it mean that it is without depending on any other kind of knowledge source?
Let's see here. So what does he say? That was the first
Yeah.
sentence there?
Rangi dawa kona la ne.
Yeah. Yeah, this is always this kangi at the very beginning of the sentence also is a little bit difficult to put in there. But anyway, kangi chikdenpa tamche rangi tawa konala nene. So having based themselves on only their own views, rangi tawa, their own viewpoint. What did Jimpa say? Given that the world population grounded in its own views, they have based themselves in only their own views. That's all that they accept. They're not going to be accepting, other things necessarily when it comes to seeing. Generally, it's not as though they don't accept logic at all, but they say you don't need logic for things that you can perceive directly. That's the kind of point. In a certain sense, Prasnakika would say that too. You don't, for manifest phenomena, you can perceive them directly, but this whole point of the viewpoint of the world is a very, very subtle one. So we have to investigate it a little more slowly. So given that the world's population is grounded in its own views alone, they are based on their own views alone, they assert that the worldly perspective is authoritative, is valid. This perspective possesses great power, and that things, effects that are other, do come from causes that are intrinsically other than themselves, is perceived by people of the world. Okay, that's where we were. Furthermore, when presenting logical proofs of the two kinds of facts, those that are evident and those that are not, what is that talking about? Two kinds of facts, two kinds of objects. So generally, when we talk about phenomena, they are either manifest phenomena or hidden phenomena. And hidden phenomena can be divided into slightly hidden and deeply hidden. You remember, right? So that's what's being talked about here. Furthermore, when presenting logical proofs of the two kinds of objects manifest, those that are evident, and those that are not evident, in other words, hidden phenomena that have to be, first recognized through logic, hidden phenomena like shunyata and permanent phenomena and things like that. So furthermore, when presenting logical proofs of the two types of facts, reason is relevant only in the latter case. Reason is relevant only in terms of hidden phenomena. Since the first is established by direct valid perception, proof through reasoning is unnecessary, prasangika. This is a non-prasangika saying, right? You don't need reasoning. So here in this context, so why are they saying that? Because prasangika is using reasoning to refute production from other, right? And they think, this is something evident. You don't need to use reasoning. You're just being too being too much of a logician. So here in this context of other arising, what use is any other type of logical reasoning? It is pointless. Thus, as other arising is established without recourse to any other proof, as production from other is established without the need of any other proof. That's what they're saying. Prasangika used logic to prove that it didn't exist, that inherently existent production didn't exist. Inherently existent other production didn't exist. Thus, other arising is established without recourse to any other proof. What need have we of reasoning? None. It is established by direct perception. And Jimpa adds, so the opponent might assert. It doesn't say that explicitly in the text. It's kind of understood by the context. When Geshe Soba was teaching, he laughed. He said, yeah, so you Prasagikas are wrong. And when I was doing the transcript, I would have there was sometimes the class would laugh uproariously when Geshe would make some statement like that. Okay, so I think we've gone over much of that before. So it's clear so far? Jennifer, you following? Looks like you're in candlelight, Jennifer. Okay. Huh?
Just low lamplight, but yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now the next outline is the response, sort of the answer that Prasangika is going to give to that objection. The response that worldly convention does not invalidate this refutation. Prasangika is going to say, this objection that you've just said that you don't need reasoning is not correct. So the text says, those who do not understand without distortion, I think Venerable says, whoever does not unmistakenly realize the meaning of the scriptures, so those who do not understand without distortion the meaning of the scriptures, that have got it wrong, those who are bereft of the means, which is repeated study of the nature of non-intrinsic existence. What is the means? The means that helps one part from the long acquainted friend, the manifest clinging to the true existence of things, stemming from the ripening of the habitual propensities for grasping at true existence. It's all one sentence, imprinted within during the beginningless, imprinted within during the beginningless cycle of existence. Such people might appeal to mere worldly convention, the arbitrary terms of the world. That's a really difficult sentence, even in English. I'm not sure Jimpa, I would agree exactly with his translation. Venerable translated it. When I say venerable, I'm referring to Venerable Joan, who translated the FPMT version. So the Jeffries segment that we have access to, that you all have the PDF of by now, doesn't start until another paragraph or two. So there's not something that we can compare with Jeffries. But Venerable translates this way. She says, to this, the Prasangika Madhyamikas respond, she has in brackets. Whoever does not unmistakably realize the meaning of the scriptures. Just, okay, Doris is just about, it's double negatives. Whoever does not unmistakably realize the meaning of the scriptures, and whoever is unable to bear listening again and again to the mode of non-inherent existence. Does that sound like us? That sounds like a lot of us also. Oh, again and again, more reasonings. So many chapters of fundamental reasoning, all proving non-inherent existence. You know, we don't have we're unable to be patient with that, listening again and again to the mode of non-inherent existence. Those people who can do that, which that listening again and again and understanding that is the freedom, she says, i.e., the method the method for becoming free from the company of associating over a long time with the strong settling on things is truly existent, which arises from the ripening of the latencies of conceiving things to be truly existent, deposited since beginningless cyclic existence, then dash, depends on chatter. So this is what she has there is what Jimpa is translating as arbitrary. I think he's got this term, arbitrary terms of the world, a couple of times. So this is a little bit complicated what's being talked about here. Depends on chatter, frivolous talk, which is the harmer of the world. Since they cannot be turned away from this frivolous talk, which is the harmer of the world, without explaining the many events of the world, it is necessary to present particular objects that are harmed, saying harmed by the world. Okay, now let me leave that because we haven't got to that in Jimpa's translation yet. So can you kind of grok this this long sentence in Jimpa's translation? How are you finding? Savash, you're here. I thought you were off. You haven't left for your retreat yet. Okay. How are you guys doing? Can you kind of grok this? Richard, is it making sense, that sentence?
I think so. I'm in the FPMT translation, I'm seeing it as whoever can't realize the meaning of the scriptures, and whoever can't bear listening again and again to descriptions of emptiness, then what you're doing, then all of that depends. All of that is really just frivolous talk. You're just basically not. You're not. If you're not listening to the scriptures on this, you're engaging in frivolous talk, because this is very critical. That seems to be what the core.
Yeah, that's one way of understanding. So
Talking about.
the point is that what we have in our mind that is countered by the logic is this long acquainted familiarity with grasping to true existence, grasping to inherent existence. That's something that's been imprinted in our minds since beginningless time. what is it? Stemming from the ripening of habitual propensities for grasping a true existence imprinted within, that means within our minds, during the beginningless cycle of existence. So that study and understanding of the scriptures is that which helps one part from that long acquainted acquaintance. Here he says friend. Well, yeah, we think of our grasping at true existence almost, we wouldn't call it a friend, but it's a well familiarized acquaintance, the acceptance, grasping at true existence that helps one part from the long acquainted friend, the manifest clinging, that means the very strong, grasping at true existence that arises, stemming from, that means it has arisen from the ripening of the habitual propensities for grasping at true existence imprinted within our minds during the beginningless cycle of existence. It's not that Lama Tsongkhapa composed this long sentence. This is more or less from Chandrakirti's auto commentary. Such people might appeal to mere worldly convention, the arbitrary terms of the world. This is, so in the Tibetan, do you know what this is in the Tibetan, Paul? What he's translating as arbitrary terms of the world and what?
Yeah, it's a strange phrase. La do, bao la, bao ra ta ra ta na ro do la do.
Yeah. So la usually means easy. And this meaning, this particular spelling of la, and dole means sort of arising, spurting up. So kind of like, I think what Venerable translated as, sometimes it's translated in the dictionaries as frivolous talk, but that's not the meaning here. It's just meaning like it's just like the easily arising kind of ideas. How does Jimpa translate it here as arbitrary terms of the world? This is arbitrary terms of the world doesn't get to it exactly. Frivolous talk doesn't get to it exactly either, but it's talking about the fact that one might appeal to worldly convention, that part's okay, which is easily acceptable, easily accessible to us, because that's what we've been habituated in. Now, this
maybe kind of like, oh shoot, I just lost it. Maybe kind of like just easily what's conventionally what's obviously considered or obvious perception.
Obvious. Yeah, it's seemingly obvious. Yeah,
exactly. Seemingly obvious.
Might appeal to worldly convention, the arbitrary terms of the world. Now, this objection from the arbitrary worldly conventions, again, it's this is the lado, cannot be averted easily. This objection that, this is just, something you see with your eyes. This is how it is. That can't be averted easily. It requires a lot of explanation about how the conventions of the world came to be. So that sentence gives a very big essence of what this whole, many, many pages about the two truths, how conventional truth is established. What is it? What does conventional truth mean? How did it come to be? It requires a lot of explanation to refute this sort of obstinance of the worldly mind to using logic they just want to say, it's just the way it are. You see it the way it is. It requires a lot of explanation about how the conventions of the world came to be. For one needs to demonstrate how the perspective of the world can invalidate, in the case of certain phenomena, that the perspective of the world is indeed something that can, with respect to certain phenomena, be authoritative in validating certain conceptions, identifying the specific characteristics of such a category of facts, and demonstrate how the worldly perspective cannot invalidate in the case of other category of facts. Or as Venerable Joan, let's see what she said here. Since they cannot be turned away from the frivolous talk, which is the harmer of the world. So it's difficult because Jikten Ginoba, well, how would you translate Jikten Ginoba, Paul? Not harmer of the world. I think, how is Jimpa translating that here?
He said something similar.
Cannot invalidate.
Invalidate, yeah.
The worldly perspective cannot invalidate. So Jikten Ginoba, the harm of the world. So the FPM translation doesn't help that much. Since they cannot be turned away from the frivolous talk, which is the harmer of the world, without explaining the many events of the world, it is necessary to present particular objects that are harmed, that are indeed harmed, saying harmed by the world with respect to such objects, and by presenting particular objects that are not harmed, saying not harmed by the world with respect to such objects. Okay, so what do you think? Anyone have a headache already? A migraine? Rachel, how you doing? Yeah, okay. So basically what it's saying here is that we're going to have to overcome this view of worldly perspective, which is incorrect, of what conventional truth is. That what you see is the way that it actually is. There's a certain truth, certain part of that's true, a certain part that's not true. And that's what has to be differentiated. And anyone who understands this well really will have a good view of the Prasangika, the Majjhimika view, Prasangika Majjhimika view. Okay. That's more or less what's being said here so far. Are we okay? Okay. So then, to do this, Jimpa says, one must first present the differentiation of the two truths. Differentiation of the two truths, conventional truth, ultimate truth. This has 5 parts. General presentation of the two truths. This is where Jeffrey Hopkins' translation will start in. If you have that PDF, you might want to have that available as a third choice here. General presentation of the two truths. Second, relating this presentation to the actual context. So first, generally presenting the two truths, and then then going back and looking at what we're talking about in this context. The people who are thinking that the worldly perspective supersedes any need of reasoning with regard to conventional phenomena. That is just, you know, what you see is what you get. So relating the presentation of the actual context. Third, the nature of each of the two truths. So going into more depth there. For objections to the assertion that worldly perspective invalidates the refutation of arising from other. So that will come later. Objections to the assertion that worldly perspectives invalidate the refutation. So the refutation of production from other is Prasangika's refutation. And so then at this point, Prasangika will object to the assertion of the non-Prasangikas that the worldly perspective invalidates the refutation of production from others. That's that fourth outline is essentially getting to this point where we are right now. And fifth, the context and the manner in which worldly perspective can invalidate. Okay. Shankala.
Venerable, I wanted to remind you about taking a break.
Yeah, let's just go a little bit further. Usually I take about maybe about 220 or so. Okay. So now the first of those 5 outlines is the general presentation of the two truths. So if you happen to have Jeffrey Hopkins, the PDF of Jeffrey Hopkins, this is on page 217. I think most or all of you, do all of you have that? Rachel, you may not have seen that. That's available on the protected sites. So this is from his text, Final Exposition on Wisdom, a Jeffrey Hopkins text. Jeffrey, who just passed away a couple of days ago. We were advised, I was advised by Paul that he thought that there would be no problem in making this section of the text available, but we don't have access to requesting Jeffrey any longer. So it is available in the protected sites. Could it be put up? Could someone put it up in the Doris? If you have it, could you put it up on the chat right now, and Rachel can download that section?
I have access to it. I can put it up, Doris.
I think Doris has already. She's just shared the file, so it takes a second. If you look in the chat, Rachel, you can see that text, or anyone else who didn't download it yet. Don, did you have that? You can see it in the chat. Doris just posted. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just looking for it now.
Okay, so I'll start from Jimpa's translation. We'll use Jimpa and Jeffrey Hopkins primarily, and then we'll consult occasionally with Venerable Jones' translation. Mainly, she was basing herself on Jimpa's translation. So there'll be a bigger contrast between Jeffrey Hopkins and Jimpa's translation. So Jimpa says, general presentation of the two truths, which is exactly the title in page 217 in Jeffrey's translation also. So this has 4 parts, 4 outlines. How phenomena, differentiated in terms of the two truths, have 2 natures. Or as Jeffrey said, stating that because phenomena are divided into 2 truths, phenomena each have 2 natures. Or any particular phenomena will have 2 natures, a conventional nature and an ultimate nature. So Jimpa says how phenomena differentiated in terms of the 2 truths have 2 natures. So here we're talking about natures as opposed to truths. So there are two things to keep in mind. You can talk about conventional nature and ultimate nature. On one hand, you can talk about conventional truth and ultimate truth on the other hand. So there's slightly different meanings, okay? Second outline, further presentation of the 2 truths. Third, distinctions within conventional truth from the perspective of the world. So that will be also a very needed distinction. So Jeffrey translates that third outline as explaining the division of obscurational truth. So Jimba's translated it as conventional truth. Hopkins translated it as obscurational truth, explaining the divisions of obscurational truths in relation to the world. Then the fourth and final outline, how the apprehended object of that which is deluded with respect to its object of apprehension does not exist even on the conventional level. Right now, maybe some of it sounds familiar to you, maybe some of it sounds completely foreign. Jeffrey translates that fourth outline, showing that the conceived object, which Jimpa translates as apprehended object, showing how the conceived object with respect to which a wrong consciousness is mistaken does not exist even in conventional terms. Okay, so later, once we've gone through these and you go back and look at these outlines, they'll all seem more lucid right now. You're not quite sure what's being talked about there. So first of all, just a general introduction from my side, when we talk about the two truths, so we talk about samvriti satya and paramasata. Is it paramasata, Paul, or is there another?
Paramartha Satya.
Paramartha
Satya.
So parama artha in Tibetan is dondempa. That means highest object truth or ultimate truth. Parama artha. We've come before when we talked about the Tibetan word dun, which can mean artha, meaning parama artha. Samvriti satya is more complicated. It means it has three different etymologies. When at least that Chandrakirti explained in his clearly worded. Some of you didn't find the name the Prasana Pada really to be that clearly worded, but anywhere or clear words. In that, he said that in the usage in Buddhism of samvriti satya, so the meaning of samvriti in that compound has three meanings. It can mean that which is covered. So samvriti satya, which you can translate it as conventional truth, or what did Jeffrey translated it as obscurational truth, is truth for an obscured mind. That which we call conventional truth is only true for a jerk, as Jeffrey used to say, truth for a jerk, conventional truth, is only true for an ignorant mind that believes what it sees is actually the way it is. That's one meaning of samvriti satya. Does anyone know the other two meanings? Suvash, have you studied, or Mikhail?
I think one is conventional.
One is yeah.
And
Samvriti means conventions of the world. So we would that gives you one of the general translations of samvriti satya as being conventional truth. That means it is true for the conventions of the world, or that for in terms of designations being imputed and so forth. And the third one, anyone know? Paul, do you know the third one? Is truth.
relative?
Come again?
No, relative or?
Yeah, sometimes it's translated as relative truth, but it's more complicated than that. It means that things are true, that which is true in terms of a certain kind of dependent origination. Let's see if I have that here. We will see. Yeah. Okay. So keeping that in mind, so on the one hand, we have ultimate truth. Ultimate truths are things that are perceived in the meditative equipoise on emptiness, seen directly, and that are unambiguous. They are the only truths that actually exist. Because from the Prasangika point of view, a truth, something that is true, has to have a quality that the way that it appears accords with the way that it exists, as opposed to, Santa Claus coming down the stairs appears to be Santa Claus, but is actually, something other than that. From the worldly perspective, I'd say from the perspective of sentient beings, everything that we perceive with our senses, and we usually will use the eyes as the general sort of arbiter of this, is what we say. The things that we see all appear to us as being inherently existent from the Prasangika point of view. KT, do you remember, does Svatantrika agree with that? The things appear to be inherently existent?
Was that the magician's illusion and thinking about that whole aspect? They appear to be but they aren't.
Okay. Does Svatantrika say that things actually appear to be inherently existent?
So then they say yes, that there is an existence in the appearance. Am I correct in saying that? Or am I, because
So
there's something that's still existent.
They say that phenomena appear to be inherently existent. Do they say that phenomena appear to be truly existent? Stephen, what do you think? You're not your.
No, they make a distinction between truly existent and inherently existent. So they don't accept true existence, but they accept inherent existence.
Right. But Prasangika says that everything appears to be truly existent and inherently existent. Svatantrika says that they do appear to be inherently existent, but they do not appear to be truly existent. That is something, Svatantrika says, that's something that's known conceptually by the mind. That's a misconception that's held by the mind. Okay. So let's see. For ordinary people, that which we consider to be true, truly existent, doesn't actually exist. And therefore, that is not a truth. All of what we call conventional truth is not actually a truth. Only ultimate truth is a truth. So that's the main thing I wanted to share. So, Sean, what are you thinking?
This is something that got brought up in that class I was talking about, where they were saying that some of these schools see two different levels of convention, because what the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are seeing would be a valid convention, whereas what we're experiencing would be what they were talking about, the jerks or whatever. Like what we're experiencing isn't valid because it's not what the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are seeing.
Well, it depends on which bodhisattvas you're talking about. So bodhisattvas are the pure bhumis, which are the bodhisattvas who are essentially equivalent to arhats. They've eliminated all of the grasping to true existence, right? Now they're working on eliminating the obstructions to omniscience on the 8th, 9th, and 10th bhumis. And of course, Buddhas. Well, let's just consider the bodhisattvas first. They perceive still phenomena to be truly existent and inherently existent, but they do not consider them to be conventional truths. They consider them to be mere conventionalities. So that distinction will come a little bit later. That may be what you're referring to, Sean, from the point of view of the, not just Arya Bodhisattvas in general, because the Arya Bodhisattvas, they would see the worldly phenomena as like illusions, but they would still, because they still have some grasping to true existence, to inherent existence, they would still consider, for them, they would be conventional truths. But for the Arya Bodhisattvas on the 8th, 9th, and 10th bhumis, close to Buddhahood, when they're they've already eliminated all of the grasping to true existence, and they're just specializing in getting rid of the obstructions to omniscience. For them, they would be called mere conventionalities. But there's be a lot of discussion about that later, what that means. Is a very important
I think
point.
the argument was that these Buddhas are seeing some kind of pure realm that we're not observing.
Yeah, I don't know who says that. That's not what generally prosecutes. But the Buddhas, from one point of view, from the perspective of their meditative equipoise on emptiness, no conventionalities exist. So no conventionalities appear to the Buddhas from their own side. If the Buddha were here in the world, embodied, let's say, as Nirmanakaya, and looked at my mug, I wish I had a fruit up here, as I say, apple or something. If he looked at this mug, it was not as though that mug would appear to him from its own side as a mug. It wouldn't appear as anything. But by knowing the minds of sentient beings, how it appears to the minds of sentient beings, the omniscient Buddha knows all conventionalities, how things appear to sentient beings. It's not as though that they appear that way to him through the force of his own karma and his own, the imprints in his mind and so forth.
Well, they were using the term the mandala of the Buddha, like, so that there's something that's experienced. It's not a nothingness.
Who's the
What are you
they?
quoting? Who or what are you quoting?
Well, that's what they were talking about. That
Who's
one of
they?
the proponents of Nippon.
Oh, you're talking
Or-
about Mipam Rinpoche again. Okay,
Yeah.
let's leave Mipam until we get some source material that we can compare what it's actually saying, rather than just vague remembrances of what you might have heard. Shanka.
So I would just think about this conventional, the conventional truth being called a truth. And I read somewhere, it made sense to me, and I'm just trying to make sure that my understanding is correct, that it's truth in the sense that an obscured mind sees it, but not only sees it through ignorance, but through ignorance believes it to be true. So then the truth in that sense, right?
Right.
So I believe it to be truth.
It is true for a ignorant mind, an obscured mind, which is one of the primary meanings of samvriti. So samvriti can mean obscured, obscure truth, conventional truth, or relative truth. Those are the three main meanings that Chandrakirti said. So before we take a break, let me just read a little bit further now. So the next outline is the first of those, how phenomena differentiated in terms of the two truths have two dual natures. So this is where Jeffrey's text begins. So this begins with stanza 23 of the 6th chapter, according to Jimpa. So Jimpa puts the whole stanza in Jeffrey's text. I think he just has the first 2 lines of it. So response. So this is in response to the objections from the non-Prasangikas that you don't need logic, that worldly conventions have power, the views of the world are authoritative, and so you don't need logic. So the response to that is all entities bear dual natures as obtained by correct or false views of them. What is seen by perfect vision is the ultimate truth, and what is seen by false vision is conventional truth. It is taught. So this is from the Karikas, very similar to the famous verse in Fundamental Wisdom, where Nagarjuna says all phenomena have 2 natures. It's a sort of similar kind of verse. So Jeffrey translates that in his text, in that outline, stating that because phenomena are divided into 2 truths, phenomena each have 2 natures. He says, Chandrakirti's supplement says, Buddha said that all things have 2 natures, those found by perceptions of reality and those found by perceptions of falsities. So Jimpa has it, what is seen by perfect vision, that found by perception of reality. And Jimpa says, what is seen by obtained by correct or false views. He says, views of them. Ngokun yandak zumpa tongbai ngone ngonini simbagyur. So all things, ngokun, yangdak, on one hand, means a perfect, which Jeffrey translates as reality. Yangdak and Yangdakpa can mean different things in different contexts. Paul, are you familiar? Yandak sometimes can mean, Jeffrey likes to translate it as reality. Sometimes it can mean perfect, right?
Yeah, perfect. What is perfect? What is correct? I think he's taking it reality in the sense of what is correct.
Right.
What is
So
Yangdak?
Jim is translating Yangdak here is correct. Jeffrey's translating it as reality. Those found by perceptions of reality.
Right, but I think
Yandak, Zumpa, Tongwai. So Jimpa says views. Tongwa doesn't usually mean view. I think Jeffrey's translation is more precise here. Buddha said that all things have 2 natures. That's the second line. Those found by perceptions, by the seeing or perception of reality or correct perception, and by false perception. Okay, so let's just introduce the next segment, and then we'll take a little short break. So Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary on that Karika says, the Buddhas who realize without distortion the individual natures of the two truths. So it says, without distortion, or as Jeffrey says, who non-erroneously know the natures of the two truths. So the Buddhas we understand to be omniscient, and they understand things correctly. They realize the individual natures of the two truths without any error. They have shown that all entities, both inner, such as the motivational factors like intention. So when we're talking about phenomena, you can talk about inner phenomena and outer phenomena. Inner phenomena are those phenomena that are conjoined with consciousness and, like say, are exemplified by, let's say, the mental factors like intention, mental factor intention. And so both inner and motivational factors, such factors like intention and so on, and outer phenomena such as sprouts and so on. So inner phenomena that are conjoined with your consciousness, and the outer phenomena that you perceive, like sprouts and so forth. All of these things, everything has two natures. What are these two? It is their nature in terms of conventional truth. One nature is in terms of the obscurational truth, the what is true for an obscured mind, and their nature in terms of ultimate truth. This indicates that when differentiated, there are two natures. So when differentiated, there are two truths, and there, as a result of that, there are two natures. Even in the case of a single entity, such as a sprout, or the mental factor intention, everything has two natures, a conventional nature and an ultimate nature. When we talked about it in other contexts, this is something you've heard before, sort of like the two sides of a coin, or what is it in Italian, Diana? Due facce della medaglia? The two faces of a medallion or a coin, the two sides of a coin, they're inseparable. You might say you've got a really good laser saw that can cut so that you have the head and the tail, but you can't separate the two natures of a phenomena. They form one entity with that phenomena. So a sprout has its own conventional nature and its own ultimate nature, and they form one entity. This indicates that when differentiated, there are two natures, even in the case of a single entity such as a sprout, conventional one and an ultimate one. It certainly does not indicate that one and the same entity, the single sprout, for example, is one truth or the other, depending upon whether the point of view is that of an ordinary person or an Arya. So Jeffrey Hopkins translated that segment as concerning this, the supermundane victors. He's translating it literally because it doesn't say just Buddhas in Lama Tsong Khapa's text. It says the Chomdinde, the supermundane victors, conquerors. That means the Buddhas who non-erroneously know the nature of the two truths, the natures of the two truths, teach that the entities of all things, internal things such as the compositional factor of intention, and external things such as sprouts, they teach that all of these are twofold. What are these? An entity that is an obscurational truth and an entity that is an ultimate truth. This indicates that when the entities of one thing, such as a sprout, the entities of one thing. Jimba's translating natures, okay? The entities, this indicates when the entities of one thing, such as a sprout, are divided, there are two entities, so two natures. One fraudulent, and the other ultimate. So here Jeffrey is translating what Jimpa says, a conventional one and an ultimate one, an ultimate nature, a conventional nature and an ultimate nature. Jeffrey is translating that as a fraudulent entity and an ultimate entity. Why does he call it fraudulent? Any idea? Rachel.
So it's deceptive. That's another translation seems to be that it's deceptive.
Right, right. It is Zumba. So Zumba is another word that's related here when we talk about conventional truths. Zumba means false or falsity, or how did he translate it here? Did he translate falsity? Fraudulent. One that is falsity, that is fraudulent, and one that is ultimate. But this does not at all indicate that just the single entity of a sprout is the two truths in relation to common beings and superior beings, respectively. It's not the case that, the sprout, with respect to ordinary beings who have not realized emptiness, is a conventional truth, and it's only an ultimate truth with respect to Aryas. Irregardless of who's looking at it, perceiving it, it has two natures that are there. Whether they can perceive it or not, whether ordinary beings can perceive the ultimate nature is not a question here. Okay, so mull over that for a minute. Let's take a short break. If you need to go to the bathroom, make a cup of tea, and I will not mute myself. I'll take my video off, but I will listen to see if there are any interesting discussions. If Sean wants to debate with Shankar, or Jennifer wants to debate with KT or something like that. Okay, we'll just take a short break. Here we go. Okay, here we go. We had a very good discussion during the break. I was enjoying very much different people presenting, talking about whether what is perceived by the divine eye is a conventional truth. I think what does some of the others think? Mikhail, do you think what is perceived by the divine eye is a conventional truth or an ultimate truth?
I'm not sure what exactly is the divine eye here. For me, the divine eye is
one of the common cities. You remember you'd ask questions about, yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it sees no, it sees
It must be conventional truth.
Yeah.
It must be conventional truth for obscuring mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if it's a common city, then it's not even necessarily Buddhist.
Yeah.
Right. It's not even necessarily a Buddhist. Even Hindus can have things like that. So let's go back. So go over, this is really important territory, not so hard as some of the other things, but really important, and to get clearly, it may be difficult to get clearly understanding what's being talked about. So we're trying to differentiate between conventional truth and ultimate truth, conventional nature and ultimate nature. Those are two different things, right? So it said, Jimpa's translation said, all entities, let me read it the way that the second line is actually the first line of the Tibetan and the Sanskrit. That which is obtained by correct or false perception, all entities bear true true natures. Or as Jeffrey said, Buddha said that all things have two natures, those found by perceptions of reality or correct perception, and by perception of falsities. Chippa says false views of them. Okay. So that's the two lines we're talking about. The second two lines are going to be talked about in the commentary a little bit further on. So again, the Buddhists who realize without distortion the individual natures of the two truths, and they can do it simultaneously. So there's a big discussion later when we talk about the 10th Bhumi and the Buddha qualities in Gompa and Madhyamaka Vatara. Geshe Zopa used to explain in great detail that the one part of the omniscient mind, let's say all of the omniscient mind is directly perceiving emptiness directly from the perspective of that portion of the mind which is perceiving of reality directly, ultimate truth directly. No conventionalities appear to that aspect of the mind, in that perspective. To the perspective of the omniscient mind that perceives conventionalities, how does it perceive conventionalities? By knowing the minds of sentient beings to whom dependent arising is appearing to them from its own side as truly existent, as inherent and existent, from the perspective of the omniscient mind perceiving conventionalities. The Buddha perceives how sentient beings know those or think they know those conventionalities, how they appear to them, how those sentient beings grasp to them as true, and so forth. Okay, so the Buddhas who realize without distortion the individual natures of the two truths have shown that all entities, both inner, such as motivational factors such as intention and so on, and outer phenomena such as sprouts and so on, they bear dual natures. They uphold two natures. So in the definition of phenomena, dharma, in the Tibetan word chu, there are at least 13 different meanings. One of the meanings of chu, or dharma, means that which upholds its own entity, its own nature. So here, when Jimpa translates, bears dual natures, that means it upholds two natures or bears two natures. Jeffrey translated, concerning this, the supermundane victors who non-erroneously know the natures of the two truths teach that the entities of all things, internal, such as the compositional factors of intention and so forth, and external things such as sprouts, those two, that all entities of all things are twofold. The entities, the natures, entity and nature are being translated as equivalent here. What are these two entities or natures that everything has? An entity that is an obscurational truth and an entity that is an ultimate truth. This indicates that when the entities of one thing, such as a sprout, are divided, there are two entities. The entities of one thing. So one thing can have two natures, two entities. A fraudulent one or a false one, that means it's not actually true, and the other ultimate. But this does not at all indicate that just the single entity of a sprout is the two truths in relation to common beings and superior beings, respectively. That's where we stopped. Okay. So we following? Okay. Jennifer, are you okay? Not okay. Nadine, how are you doing? Making sense? Any questions?
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Richard has a question.
Yeah, if this it seems like maybe I'm wrong. I'm probably certainly wrong here, but it sounds to me like what he's saying is that an object has two natures, and that these natures are independent of the observer, whether or not the observer is a ordinary being or an Arya. And that suggests then that the natures are from the side of the object. That suggests that they are inherent natures. So
Right.
please enlighten me as to how I'm mistaken.
Good question. Yeah. Okay. So what does anyone think? So, Don, you have an opinion?
I think the two natures come from our minds more than the objects.
They come from our minds. Okay. Huh. Not
But
sure.
that means the ultimate nature also comes from our mind, right? Which I'm not sure I agree.
Well, does the ultimate nature? Okay, we have debate. Does the ultimate nature exist inherently? Okay,
No.
leave that. Yeah. So neither of those natures, Richard, exist inherently from their own side. So they exist due to the perception of sentient beings. But here, what it's saying is that the point that's being made here is that let's say that take the sprout. The sprout has a conventional nature, or you could call it a false nature of appearing to be truly existent. And it has an ultimate nature of actually, in reality, being empty of inherent existence, even though it appears on the conventional level as being inherently existent, is actually empty of that. That's its ultimate nature. Those two are of one bigger nature, so that includes those two natures. They are inseparable, and it is not as though how does he say here? But this, in reading Hopkins, but this does not at all indicate that just the single entity of a sprout is the two truths in relation to common beings and superior beings, respectively. And he has a note, which is the nice thing about having now Hopkins' translation, because his scholarly notes supplement the occasional notes that Jimpa has in his text. So for this particular point, he says, this is note C on page 217 at the bottom, that is, this does not at all indicate that just the single entity of a sprout is an obscurational truth in relation to common beings and is an ultimate truth in relation to superiors. This does not at all indicate that. So, in other words, the implication would be that when superior beings perceive the sprout, it is an ultimate truth. The superior beings, Arya beings, also perceive the conventional sprout, don't they? So it's some kind of misconception among philosophers that the two truths of a single entity, like a single thing, like a sprout, let's say, that those two entities are differentiated by how the beings, superior beings and ordinary beings. Okay, well, there's some more to be said about that, but at least leave that for the time being. Rachel, you have a thought?
Well, I wanted to go back to what you were saying about there only being one truth. And because they're called truths, I know I've heard this in more detail before and I'm forgetting it, but because they're both called truths, is that what's being indicated here by it's not relating to the minds of the ordinary and the minds of the superior beings?
So with respect to that, Prasangika says, actually, a truth has to be something, as I said before, that its mode of abidance, the way that it actually exists, accords with the way it appears. So what we call conventional truths or deceptive truths, relative truths, all of these different names for samvriti satya, what appears to ordinary beings are not really truths. They're only called truths from that perspective. I'm not sure if it could make an example like a video game or something like that. You're one of these online, what do they call them? There's some acronym for the online living, you're hooked up to people in other places, and you're one character, you're shooting guns or doing mysteries with this big community. So for that, maybe, for those people in that mindset at that time, that's truth. But that's not really truth at all, even from a conventional point of view. When you quit the game, you say, Mom, no, I know that's not really true. I'm not really Zorba, the knight and so forth. That's just, that's not really true. But so from say, for instance, what we consider to be, ordinary people consider to be true, the trees outside, the fence, the car, traffic jam and so forth, the election, all of that appears to be inherently existent, but is actually empty of that. And therefore its mode of existence does not accord with the way that it's appearing. So those things are not actually truths. Conventional truths are not actually truths. They are just truths for a deceptive mind. And in fact, that's why Jeffrey, when we say kunsop dempa is one of the ways that you can translate samvriti satya into Tibetan. Kunsop means concealer, or concealing mind or ignorance. Kunsop, totally concealing. So it's truth for a totally concealed mind, a mind that is still grasping to things as being truly existent, but they're not really truths. That's why he coined the phrase truth for a jerk. They're not really truths. They're like the truth of the video game, Okay, leave for a while. Let it marinate. Jennifer, you have a thought?
Thank you, Venerable George. I just had a quick question around what you said. Arya beings also perceive the conventional sprout. Just to clarify, that's perceiving it when they're outside of meditative equipoise on emptiness?
Say again, I didn't catch.
Oh, sorry. When you say that Arya beings also perceive the conventional sprout, I just wanted to clarify that they perceive it only when they're outside of meditative equipoise on emptiness.
Yeah. They're not always in meditative equipoise on emptiness. The only person that's always in meditative equipoise on emptiness is a Buddha. The Bodhisattvas arise from that and practice the 6 perfections. And when in doing so, they see the beggars and they see, harms that they try to be patient with. Those appear to be truly existent, and they meditate on them as being non-truly existent. So they see conventionalities. Before the 8th bhumi, they considered those conventionalities to be conventional truths. From the 8th, 9th, on the 8th, 9th, and 10th bhumis, they consider them to be mere conventionalities. But as is said in the text, more on that later. Okay, let's go a little bit further. So in Jinpa's translation, it says, so this is just after that thing. It certainly does not indicate that one and the same entity, the single sprout, for example, is one truth or the other, depending on whether the point of view is that of ordinary persons or Aryas. So the next sentence begins, this understood, whether we've understood this or not, it's debatable. This understood, it is furthermore impossible for a phenomenon to have no nature at all. Okay, and so phenomenon is what's translated dharma, or Tibetan word chu. As I mentioned before, there's at least 13 different meanings of a chu, probably even more, but in some of the dictionaries are limited to 13. One of the main one means that which upholds its own nature. So if it doesn't have a nature, it's not a phenomenon. This is just another way of saying this. It is furthermore impossible for a phenomenon to have no nature at all. It has to bear some nature. So, insofar as something is an established base, another way of saying existent phenomena. Remember when we talked about these various synonyms of existent phenomena, established base, shidrup. Why is it called established base, Paul? Do you remember?
Because it's established by the consciousness that validly apprehends it.
Established by a valid cognition, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So insofar as something is an established base, it's just another way of saying insofar as something is existent, it must be either identical in nature or different in nature from other things. So when we talked about the earlier course, if 2 things exist, or if something exists, let's say my mug exists, it must be either identical in nature or different in nature from other things. So is it identical in nature to my glasses? Earlier, when we talked about the 4-point analysis, we say that 2 things either have to be identical or different. Here is saying different, identical in nature or different in nature. So you're exploring something a little bit more complicated here. Furthermore, it is not inconsistent to accept things to possess a nature. Okay, if you accept things they have a nature, it's not inconsistent to reject that they possess intrinsic nature. So to accept that the mug has a nature or dual natures, there's no problem with saying that you don't have to accept it having an inherently existent nature, intrinsic nature. Okay, that's easy, right? Here, the ultimate nature of entities such as sprouts is the nature of the thing obtained as the object of a specific gnosis by those who possess correct view and directly perceive the perfect truth. So you can see some of those words are in bold we call it type, bold. Anyway, bold. Here's the ultimate
Boldface?
nature. What is it?
Boldface?
Boldface, okay. Here, the ultimate nature of entities such as sprouts is the nature of the thing obtained, that's bold, as the object of a specific gnosis by, that's bold, those who possess corrective view, bold, and directly perceive the perfect truth. Why are those things in bold?
It's because they were in the quote, right? In the verse.
They're in the verse. So go back to the verse. And what does he have here? He has the ultimate nature of the entities such as sprouts is the nature of the thing obtained as the object of obtained by corrective view, obtained by corrective view. So the second line in Jimpa's translation says, as obtained by correct or false view of them. So that's referring when there are words in Gompa Rapso that are in boldface or bold typeset that refers to the particular words in the karaka that's being explained here. Here, the ultimate nature of the entities of sprouts is the nature of the thing obtained as the object of a specific gnosis. What does gnosis mean? It's the Tibetan word yeshe, Sanskrit word jnana.
Under something like understanding?
Yeah, it's sort of exalted wisdom, sometimes we used to translate earlier. It is the nature of the thing obtained as the object of a specific exalted wisdom by those who possess correct view and who directly perceive the perfect truth. So Jeffrey translates that. Taken this way, since there is no occurrence of a phenomenon lacking an entity, whatever our established bases, that is, our existence, he has in brackets, do not pass beyond being either one entity or different entities. Whatever is an established base does not pass beyond being either one entity or different entities. Jimpa has from other things. He just, Jeffries just says, does not pass beyond being either one entity or different entities. And although entities are exerted to exist, it is not contradictory that an inherently established entity does not exist. Okay, I didn't get to that point in Jeffrey's translation yet. Okay, so just continue. We'll go back over this in a second. Continuing Jimpa to the finish of this paragraph. Such a truth, that is an ultimate truth, is not established, however, through its own essence. In answer to Richard's question, such a truth is not established, however, through its own essence. This then is one of the two natures referred to above. By specific gnosis, quote unquote, specific gnosis indicates that it is not obtained by just any gnosis, any particular wisdom, higher wisdom, but a specific one. So that means because in a bodhisattva's continuum, all of their mind stream, all of their real understandings can be labeled by gnosis. even if it's not a direct realization of emptiness, even you can have gnosis or exalted wisdom of conventional things. Specific gnosis indicates that it is not obtained by any gnosis, just any old gnosis of an Arya person. Rather, it must be a specific or particular type of gnosis. That is to say, it is obtained by the gnosis that realizes the way things are. So what establishes ultimate truth? The meditative equipoise of an Arya being, that gnosis, that particular exalted wisdom that realizes the way things actually are as being empty of inherent existence. Making sense? Anyone shaking their heads left and right? Okay.
This paragraph did answer my question. Richard speaking.
Yeah, this answered your question, you say?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, good. So, okay, so then continuing. This is a long little section, several paragraphs. Now, okay, I'll just read this next and we'll end because we're 10 minutes after 3. Now, in presenting this as obtained or established by that gnosis. So the word obtained that came earlier in the root verse, all entities bear dual natures as obtained by correct or false views. That can be ngepa, I think. I'm not sure. Do we have the translation there? The Tibetan?
Yes, nyepa. Rang Yaratanya Drambunte Jad Ye.
So you can translate ngepa, this ngepa, not ngepa, as being found or obtained or received. Like when you receive initiations, you say, the initiation has been ngepa. You could say attained or obtained or received. Now, in presenting this as obtained or established, in other words, what that means when something is obtained by the gnosis, it is established by that gnosis. One might wonder whether something is established by that whether something established by that gnosis must be truly existent. Okay, so that particular specific gnosis that is establishing ultimate truth, ultimate nature, you might wonder whether that must be truly existent. Why would you wonder that? Well, this has come up before and will come up again, the misconceptions. To help avert this, Chandrakirti writes, it is not established by virtue of its own essence, however. So here, Jimpa's footnote, 413, just says, just refers to that section in the text. So we're going to finish there. I'll just read Jeffrey's translation before we finish. An ultimate truth is not found by just any pristine wisdom. So not just any gnosis. He translates pristine wisdom here of a superior. Rather, it is found by a, quote, specific pristine wisdom, a specific gnosis, which is to be taken as a specific type, or in other words, a particular type of pristine wisdom. It is found, moreover, Jimpa said, obtained. It is found, moreover, by a pristine wisdom comprehending the mode of the mode. So what does that word mean? He has in parentheses, the mode of being of phenomena, comma, emptiness. What is that? What does mode mean there? Do you know, Paul?
Well, the Tibetan is jidawa, so it's just kind of the manner in which it exists, just as it is, something like
Right.
that.
So there's some other synonyms of conventionalities, the multiplicity of phenomena, as opposed to that specific ultimate nature of phenomena. Jitawa, literally in Tibetan, I'm not sure of the Sanskrit, literally in Tibetan it says how it is viewed, something like that, jitawa. And the other is jiniepa. So that niepa is also the same word that's being translated as obtained or found. That refers to the multiplicity of phenomena that occur to the conventional mind. So here Jeffrey translates, moreover, it is found, moreover, by a pristine wisdom comprehending the mode. That means the meditative equipoise that is directly realizing emptiness. Then just to the final sentence here in Jimpa's translation. When Chandrakirti indicates that an ultimate truth is found or established by that pristine wisdom, it might be held that if there is something established by that pristine wisdom, it is truly established. Not the wisdom is truly established, but that which is found by that. So that's where we're going to stop. So read ahead and see if you can grok this. If you remember my allusion to, what was it, someone's guidebook to the universe.
No, I think that's Robert
Strangers in
Heinlein.
a Strange Land.
Robert Heinlein, Strangers in a Strange Land. Yes.
Oh, Strangers in a Strange Land. Rock. Okay, not the other one. So, how are we doing? Making sense? As I said, not completely as complicated as some of other sections, but some inconsistencies occur, like Richard pointing out, and here's this, right, Chandrakirti saying it is not established by its virtue of its own essence, in order to refute the idea that something found by that ultimate analysis would be truly existent, truly established. Okay, so any questions before we finish? How are we doing? You good? We'll have discussion on Monday. We'll have class next Saturday. And as we're making dedications, let's also keep in mind such a dear friend to some of us and teacher, Jeffrey Hopkins, having passed away a couple of days ago. We will dedicate merits that he quickly encountered the perfect Mahayana guru in his future life, and that he, through that he quickly enter into the non-erroneous path to enlightenment and quickly achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So just after this, we're going to start with a dedication just after this Shanka. Gewadi Nyurduda Lama Sangye Trugyurne Droha Chikyang Malupa De Sala Gopa Sho. So thinking also, due to these virtues, may the mind stream of Jeffrey Hopkins quickly encounter the perfect Mahayana Guru and complete the path to enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings due to the virtues that we've created this morning. And may the supreme jewel, the supreme precious bodhicitta that has not arisen as yet, may that arise and grow. May that which has arisen in my mind stream not diminish, but increase more and more. And then the prayer for the quick return of Lama Zopa. Peerless teacher and assembly of children of the conquerors, Bodhisattvas, you Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas, Losang Drakpa, Lama Zopa Khapa, the spiritual father and your spiritual sons, Kedrup J and Galsup J, together with your lineage, all objects of refuge of the infinite realms, please bestow upon us now the virtue and goodness to accomplish this prayer. In upholding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice related to what we were talking about at the beginning of the class today, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make this request. Sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, while you were striving exclusively for the welfare of both the victorious one's teachings and of mother sentient beings, you suddenly departed to peace. At this, I lost hope. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truths of the oceanic blessings of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the bodhisattvas, the mind generation of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a new reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for us fortunate disciples. And then finally, there's one more verse after that, Shanga, for all of our gurus. Yeah. You who are my eyes for viewing all the infinite scriptures, Dalai Lamas, Serkon Rinpoches, and so forth, Yangtze Rinpoches, you are the supreme gateway for the fortunate ones traveling to liberation, the doorway for those who are fortunate enough to travel to liberation, engaging as you will with skillful means moved by mercy. So on the conventional level, that aspect of the omniscient mind that perceives conventional truth, moved by skillful means, moved by mercy, love, and compassion, all illuminating spiritual friends, please live long and stable lives. So thank you very much for chewing some dry bones. Look forward to seeing you Monday. Any last, anything else needs to be addressed in question? No? Okay, see some of you Monday, hopefully a lot, and hopefully all of you next Saturday.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Thank you,
Thank you, Venerable.
Thank you,
Shanta.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Thank you, Shanta.
Shanta, thank you, Shanti Deva.
And thank you, Shanta.
Thank you, fellow students.
Have a wonderful weekend, all.
Thank you. You too.